Few people have been bigger supporters of big government helping everyone, but especially blacks, than Congressman Charlie Rangel. He's now in his 40th year in Congress, and when my colleague gave him a hard time recently about big government, the congressman said, "It's a great government. Why not be big?" So it's a great government. You spend almost twice the money that you have. Your welfare programs are unsustainable. Your tax laws are so complicated that even you who write them can't understand them. Government isn't great. Government is a bloated problem.
I cannot disagree with you more. It is the greatest idea of government since history has been recorded. And the standard of living for people, hey, I know poverty. I've seen it. We've had poor people burst out of poverty because of education, technology, and opportunity. And so...
But what's it have to do with big government and affirmative action and welfare?
Where do you think all of these... Well, listen, what do you want? No government?
No, I want it this size again. The Constitution and the Declaration. Great government right here. Big enough.
That government will throw me back in slavery. You don't want that. You don't want that government. Come on now.
I don't want to throw you back.
They weren't thinking about me when they wrote that book. I wasn't even 3/5 of a guy. So let's pass that book and say that it was a good beginning, and it's there to improve on it, and that's what we've done.
All right, well, let's go beyond slavery to some of the many newer programs like affirmative action. Good?
You bet your life, even though there's some kind of a stigma attached to it that they're giving people priority or preferential treatment. The truth of the matter is, if you're in the land of the free where equality is there, and you find somebody with one leg, is it affirmative action to say, hey, if you got another leg hanging around there, attach it to this guy because we want to level the working field?
Walter Williams calls affirmative action despicable and mean. It's a mean practice to treat people differently just because they're members of one race or another.
Couldn't agree with him more. If you're treating them differently in a discriminatory manner, he and I read from the same page. If you affirmatively try to correct that type of conduct, I think it's the American thing to do.
But isn't it treating them differently if you have a lower score and you can get into college? If you're black and if you're Asian, you have to have a much higher score?
I would think so, but it has to be a balance.
All right, let's talk about another big government program. Welfare, AFTC, whatever, food stamps, whatever piece of it you want to call it. It's been a good thing for blacks?
I'm laughing because I'm a member of the Congressional Black Caucus and the founding members, and I tell my Southern white colleagues, we've done more for poor white folks than all of them together. Because we don't have...
Most recipients of welfare were white. That's true, have been white.
And it bothers me to see in our rural countries especially, they have not caught up with the rest of America. We don't single out black for welfare. And so therefore, any program that we have for people who are disadvantaged, there are just as many white people who are disadvantaged in this country.
But you mentioned Medicare. They hadn't risen up. Maybe it's because of big government that they haven't. They've been taught to be dependent.
No, they've been taught to stand up on their own feet, and some people just need a little more help than others. You take the immigrants. We had to go out of our way to have them to learn English, to give them special programs. The Catholic Church was a haven for the Irish and Italians.
But the church was better than your big government. The church knew who needed help and who needed a kick in the rear. Clumsy, bloated government just gives it all to everybody.
Don't get me involved in churches. I'll put the government against them in a minute, because right now, somebody should be helping these people. Clearly, it's not the church advocating for them. And so
has welfare helped? Have these programs helped?
You call it welfare, but if you have a child and you don't have any food for the child and medical care for the child, I don't care what you call it, John. The dignity of Americans, the dignity of our great country, is to see that no child dies, no child has malnutrition. I don't care what you call it, but the last stop should be the federal government. And I say the last stop.
Walter Williams says the welfare state did to black Americans what slavery could not do, what the harshest racism couldn't do. destroy the black family?
Well, I don't know Walter's background or connection with slavery.
Welfare encouraged men to move out of the house so that the child and the woman could get free stuff.
Do you believe that some man would leave his child because they wanted the mother to get a welfare check? I don't see how anyone
I think in
could
some cases the mother said, get out, or we can't get this money.
Well, listen, I've heard people do this. I heard Reagan talk about welfare people driving Cadillacs. But you have to have something a little more substantive if you're talking about welfare, if you're talking about big government. Are there areas that we should reform and change? You bet your life there are, but you can't just say welfare is bad and black folks have had their families destroyed because of it.
One more law meant to help people, the minimum wage. You've been a big supporter of raising it. That helps poor people?
You don't really think there should be a level of pay for services that are rendered by people?
A minimum level set by the state? No, I don't. I think the market should set it.
Well, how? We're right back to slavery, which I don't know. I guess I started this, but there was no minimum wage for slavery. Don't you believe there should be some bottom?
Well, slavery is forced. That's very different. A minimum wage? No. An employment contract.
Just assuming a hypothetical, you got a kid, he's 18 years old, he wants to work, and the guy says, well, I can't tell you what I'm going to pay you. I may give you $2 or $3 an hour. And
the kid can say no.
But if he needs a job, if he's trying to help out his parents, if he needs a...
But with the wage at $7.25, he doesn't even get offered the job.
The question, John, is the wage fair?
But how do you know $7.25 is fair? Why not 10? You're cheap. Why not $10? Why not $20 an hour?
Because economists try to find out what is fair in a general way. Is it perfect to pick a wage? But I can tell you this. The more disposable income that people have, it means that somebody is selling them goods or services. So putting money into people's hands that don't have it.
But how does it put money into the kid's hand if the employer...
By increasing the minimum wage.
But he doesn't get the job. The employer says, all right, then I'm not going to hire as many people.
But there's no statistics to prove that if some employer believes that the kid's not worth the minimum wage, guess what? He doesn't give him the job.
And that's why Walter Williams says that black unemployment is high because of your minimum wage law.
You know, I don't know Walter Williams personally, but if he's nearly as good as obviously you think he is because you rely on him, I'm taking him to Washington with me. You know,
well,
I don't know how
he is as good.
Living.
I hope you take him to Washington with you. Thank you, Charles Rangel. More on the state against blacks when we come back.